Today, we put the chill in ChillPoint because it is really cold outside right now. This is ChillPoint.
I thought it was just because our takes were cold.
I mean, that too. Come here for the coolest video game takes on the internet.
What's cooler than cool? Our ice cold takes.
You know, if we're gonna like be really, could we bring back video and arcade top 10? Just us.
Yes.
Do 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 do. Is that do 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 do?
Yeah, it was very minimalist.
Do do do. Yeah. Yeah. Video and arcade top 10. That's one of those TV shows that, there was always that thing where when you're a kid, when you stop watching a thing, you assume it stops.
Yeah.
Like when I stopped playing Magic, I assumed it stopped.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we found out later on that was not the case.
Because it was never popular enough to kind of catch your interest.
Or it's not popular among your friend group, so you're just like, you never see it.
Yeah. Video and arcade top 10 kept going for way longer than you think.
Yeah.
Oh, probably.
With the same guy.
Yeah.
Whatever
Animal
No,
Danimal.
Nicholas Pickles.
Nicholas Pickles,
Thank
that's
you.
it.
Yeah. I knew his name.
Animal
rhymed with
Danimal,
itself.
what a
Yes.
ridiculous name. Why would somebody have that name?
Yes.
Anyway, hey everybody. Welcome to ChillPoint, show where we talk about video game news and tidbits about the weather here in Victoria.
And did you know that sometimes shows keep going on longer than you thought? Like Loading Ready Run. We still make things.
Yeah.
Welcome.
We
Probably because I'm not on the microphone. There we go.
In fact, not that it's an episode of Friday nights, but if you like episodes of Friday nights, you might like the Arena special that went up on the Magic Arena channel that we produced a little while ago.
And if you don't like the YouTube interface because you're like, I can't find things, if you go to our Discord, the mods have set up forums, and I know that they made a channel post for that show, so you can find it real easy.
Anyway, welcome everybody to ChillPoint show where we talk about video game news, and we also talk about the episode of Checkpoint that went up just last day.
Wow.
Yesterday is what we call the day before today.
We just let him do that. We didn't mess with him or anything.
No.
I mean, we already were talking about random stuff for a while,
Yeah.
so
It's not that long.
we did the video arcade top 10 skip.
Yeah. Started about video games, ended up on video games.
Let's first talk about
All the shopping I'm doing at the Nintendo store.
I do like
Still doesn't work.
in the chat, in the comments to this video, people are quite invested
They sure are.
now.
Did you said this morning or yet last night or whatever, you're like, hey, I went and tried to add stuff and it persisted.
And
Okay.
I logged into I went into the Canadian store,
Yep.
logged into my account,
Yep.
stayed on the Canadian store,
Yep.
went over, added a thing to my cart, went to check it. I didn't check out
No,
because
but
I went all the way to the point where I would have to put in my credit card number.
Yep.
It seemed totally fine.
Yes.
I logged into the Loading Ready Run Nintendo account, and it all worked fine.
Yes.
But my personal account doesn't work.
And my personal account doesn't work. And we're on a family account.
Well, no. Family account is not. We're still separate accounts.
Yes. But we are associated with each other in a way that
I don't think that has anything to do with what's going on.
So if there's an alert on
Look, I
Beej's
just-
account, it might activate
I'm
yours.
just letting you use Nintendo service online, and
Yeah.
it's not like you use it.
But we know that we're not even IP blocked or anything weird like that because at home she was able to log in with the Moonbase account and it all was going to work. But when she tried to do it herself, immediately
Well, I
after
also
that, it
tried
didn't.
to log in under my account under a private window,
Yeah.
and we tried to do it here. And
So-
various
There is a
places.
guy in the YouTube comments who said, hey, that's happening the same for me as well. And so I said, you should maybe just call in and let them know. And so they wrote me back, or they commented on the thing, and I got a notification for it saying, like, yes, I also now have called in and let them know, and they don't have any existing tickets or issues for this. And I'm like, ah! Did Jake get struck by a meteor? Like,
Who knows
I
what
like
happened?
I like the
when it disconnected, did it just kill the whole ticket?
yeah, I like the suggestion somebody put that by going through the same process, like Jake was putting the same things into their shopping cart
Yeah.
and tried to check out, and thereby activating the same bug.
Yeah.
And Jake himself got taken out of the shopping cart
Well,
and is
I mean-
now gone.
Being a blue badger, he might have gotten taken out by the Nintendo Ninjas.
Well, maybe that's what happened.
So I guess
He wasn't putting things in my cart either. He was actually just trying to see what was wrong. He didn't have control over my stuff. Anyway.
yeah, it could be something to do with because you have very old accounts. I mean, I'm a Johnny come lately in terms of my Nintendo account.
Yeah, ours were Nintendo Network accounts that we associated
Yeah,
with Nintendo
but I
accounts.
bought stuff like not that long
Yeah,
ago.
and me
Like
too.
that's the thing.
Something has changed.
It's not like this is the first time I've tried to purchase something.
And I hate it when people change things on websites and they don't test them correctly. Because let me tell you about TD Bank. Let me not tell you about TD Bank.
No.
Let's
No.
go
No,
on
let's
to
not do that one.
Let's go on to the actual video games.
No.
So I mean, that was one of the stories that we covered. That was a legitimate conversation related to one of the stories that we
Yep.
talked about.
And I even left it in,
Um,
along
But-
with some mouth noises.
let's talk about Platinum Games' new game, or the new Bayonetta game that they
Yeah.
announced. We saw the trailer for this at the Video Game Awards. Bayonetta Origins, Syriza, and the Lost Demon, which I do love the juxtaposition of some screenshots and gameplay and the feel of the mainline Bayonetta games, and this one, which is like it's got a very like
Storybook.
yeah
It's
storybook
fairy
like
tale aesthetic.
sort of like Celeste or
I mean,
like
even
one of these like sort of like little like sort of indie wholesome kind of
Like
game
even
feel.
even the
Yeah.
title is basically the title of like a child's book.
Yeah,
Right.
you're right. It is.
I assume we haven't heard anything, but if the Bayonetta in this version in the new game is voice acted, it will not be the
No,
same voice actor.
it'll be a young child of some sort, I'm sure. Or
Maybe.
like,
I don't know if she's supposed to be like that young in it.
Well-
She's just not before she was like
so
killer witch person.
in the games, apparently, like the proper mainline games, there is a flashback sequence where you get to meet small child Syriza. Apparently, I gleaning this from reading an article,
Sure.
and they said
Small
that's her
child-
before she even knew anything about being a witch.
Small child Bayonetta.
Yeah, small child Bayonetta is named Syriza, right? She changed her name, I guess, when she got.
Oh,
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, right. That's why there's Syriza and the Lost Demon. So anyway, so then the game kind of concentrates on the little child and then the grown-up Bayonetta, and then somewhere in between is when she summons her first demon, which is what this story is about. So it's like this is before she has the guns. This is before she has all the hair magic. This is just her learning how to summon a demon. And she meets Cheshire, which is the lost demon, and is a pain in the ass apparently, and they have to work together to do things.
I'm hoping there's a scene at some point where it has to be the whatever the witches that she's this is before as she's becoming a witch.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody has to sit her down to explain why she has to now always wear high-heeled shoes,
Right, yeah.
and the guns have to be the heels of the shoes. And she's like, couldn't I just have the no, that's not how it
No,
works.
you
So-
can have your own. You can have guns in your hands if you want, but you have to also wear high heel guns.
What I want to point out about this game as well is that it is a full-priced game, which surprised me because just because of how like soon Bayonetta 3 came out
Yeah.
recently, and this game seemed like a shorter story kind of thing. I expected it to be maybe like just a
15-hour romp.
just like a $50 game as
Yeah.
opposed to like a $60 game.
Yeah.
Do they have a release date
American
on this one?
prices. Yeah, they gave it to us in that trailer.
Sure, let's 2023.
I can't remember when. I thought it
January
was like April.
17th. I don't know. It's
We'll see anyway.
yeah. Kamiya apparently had the idea to do a spin-off game, And
I'm gonna
what
look it up.
so if you are a manga fan and you've read a manga or watched an anime called New Game, you're gonna find some similarities with what the story I'm about to tell. So Kamiya wanted to do a spin-off game, and Tenari, Abebe Tenari, was like, I want to work on like whatever's coming next kind of idea. Like, I'm so excited for Bayonetta 3. And Kamiya's like, actually, I have a thing going on that I think you might be really interested in. It'd be kind of like, he's trying to distract me from being on the thing. Anyway, so, because he was in the design, Tenari was in the design category and like
March.
working on games. March
17th.
That is fast.
That's what I mean.
That's
Like-
fantastic.
Like Bayonetta 3 came out in October.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does seem like it might be. They might have
It's concurrent development.
done it, and it does seem like the kind of game that they might have done as like a slightly lower.
Yeah, it just seems like
Price
something
thing,
that
yeah.
they,
A smaller team, a different
Yeah.
And well, that's what I think is great is that Kamiya is saying, let's make this spin-off. I think that you should concentrate on making a pitch for this spin-off. And Tenari then worked on a pitch, and Kamiya's idea was, I'd like it to be an Origins thing, like I'd like it to be that kind of, this kind of idea. And then Tenari built a pitch around that, and then did a couple of presentations that were, he describes as very nerve-wracking, and it's like it was a competition. So there might have been other people also being told, hey, do you want to pitch for this new game that's coming out? And if you get it, then you get to be the director, because Kamiya is the supervising director on this. He's not the director on this. He's the one who's probably being like, I will keep an eye on what it is that you're doing. I'll help you if you need help, but it's your baby to kind of take from end to end. And yeah, Tenari won and was super happy about it. And so they devote their resources then, they devote a chunk of their resources to making this game.
I mean, let's be fair. Any pitch that you can walk away from is a pitch that you've won.
Yeah.
Wait, do they kill you if you don't do the pitch?
So yeah, I was just kind of surprised by the idea that here is this thing from this manga, this anime that I watched, where they do that in the manga, where they're like, hey, so I have this idea for a game, and then, or I have this idea for something else. It's like, we're gonna have people compete on what they think should be the art direction of this game, or compete on what they think this other thing, and you have to make presentations about what your ideas are, and then present them to everybody, and then the brass get to decide about which way they think the game should go.
That's just how pitching works.
Yeah, I feel like that's not a thing unique to this particular manga.
But you show the whole company. Like, everybody's there looking. And I'm kind of like, normally you just walk into a room and be like, here's my pitch, and there's 4 people there. It's like, no, 40 people show up and they all attend your presentation. I'm like, that's a lot of pressure if you're not used to that kind of idea. Because you know that other art people are looking at what you're doing. They're judging what you're doing. They're deciding if they could do better. Like, those kind of things. Competition, so... Anyway,
You've hung out in weird places with art. If that's the
well,
thing that you get.
You're all trying to like, you want to make your thing happen, right? If there's a project coming up, it's like you get to make your thing happen. So you'd be like, I want to do this. I want to be better than everybody else's, so I can win, kind of idea.
That's no.
So anyway, yeah.
I mean, the funny thing is, like, saying that isn't, that is certainly not a unique thing to Platinum Games
No.
or to manga, and in fact, in a lot of companies, has resulted in extremely toxic work environments.
Because it's very competitive. Yeah.
Very competitive, and you end up with like skunkwork projects and competing, and just Apple had the problem with like 3 or 4 different teams all working on
similar ideas
and wasting a ton of time and effort.
Yeah.
I think what the important thing we should point out is Bayonetta is old enough that this person played it as a child and then decided they wanted to work on Bayonetta, and now they get to work on Bayonetta.
That's so great.
Bayonetta's old.
Like
Yeah.
the
Old.
as Beach briefly mentioned, the what appears to be anyway the story of Abebe Turner Tinari.
Tenari, yeah.
His sort of trajectory is quite endearing, right?
Mhm.
He's from Vancouver.
Yep.
Moved to Japan to be a translator for Platinum Games.
Yep.
In 2013. Did a bunch of localization for Bayonetta 2. Moved into game design. And then he moved to the Bayonetta Origins. So, presumably
It's kind
he's
of like
going,
meteoric,
yeah, presumably doing what he wants. So that's awesome.
He played Bayonetta, I think, in high school in like 2009, and then he moved to Japan to go to university, and then he got the job like working on stuff. I think is how that all kind of shook out.
Yeah. I mean, if not to disparage Bayonetta,
No.
but if someone was like, I'm gonna move to Japan and become a game developer, because Bayonetta was like the only game that they're like, every game should be like Bayonetta.
Yeah.
I would be highly suspicious.
I'm a little skeptical this is going to work out the way you expect, and yet here we are.
And yet here we are.
Does Bayonetta happen in Japan?
I don't.
This happens in London.
I think it's kind of a globe-trotting thing. To be honest, I haven't played the whole game,
Yeah,
but
okay.
I believe Bayonetta herself is British.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, I assume it all happens in Europe. Whatever.
I do see people talking in the chat about our volume. Hopefully, I don't know, man. When I look at the levels in OBS, they are in the yellow, if not in the red sometimes, which to me means that they're as loud as they should be.
Yeah. If you would like us to be
But
louder
that's
so
how
we
it
match
goes.
all the ads, we can do that. So it's less jarring when the ads cut in on you, I guess. But
All right, let's talk about Epic Games.
Do we have to?
Well, not really.
but we can talk about the FTC.
Okay.
They're
Yeah.
involved.
I mean, we this is kind of interesting because this is sort of this is separate yet and sort of related to the stuff we talked about last week, because this is a fine that the FTC are giving out for violating the COPA protections.
Yeah, Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Yeah.
And then also for having people buying things that they weren't expecting to, and being sort of tricked in that way. And thank you to, I saw a couple people in the comments who watched both ChillPoint and ChillPoint, because we talked last week about dark patterns.
Yes.
Unprompted by the story, but that's the legitimate technical name of what they're doing.
Yeah.
And the example that they gave in the document, which we put up on screen, I think is a particularly nice example, where they have like buy and undo.
Mm-hmm.
Too many people were undoing the purchases,
Mm-hmm.
so now they have buy, and then down in the corner
Where it's hard to see.
they have a cancel button,
Mm-hmm.
and they also changed the button for canceling from like X
Right.
to hold down the button that you use to buy. So like you buy it by pushing triangle,
Right.
or hold down triangle to cancel the purchase.
Which would feel weird.
yeah,
Because you're like, you're having to like, I mean, I can understand the whole like, press this to say yes and this to say no. That's always kind of been a staple of like the PlayStation
Yeah.
controller or whatever. But that idea of like make it the same button just feels like you're confirming the purchase again.
yeah. Or
Right.
and like hold the button to do it.
Yeah. When it's not clear that's what you're supposed to be doing. That's like the definition of a dark pattern, right? Like that's, so we're like, it's hard to reveal this interface.
Circle for yes, X for no.
Yeah, makes sense. But I also get that if you have bought something and then you use the cancel button, a lot of people also think of cancel as moving back. So it would mean that it would move you back from your purchase to like the main menu where you can make more purchases. And
Right.
So yeah, I can see why you'd want to be like, oh, use the triangle button to confirm a purchase, because it is not where your thumb is normally resting.
I like that Paul laughed because he knows that that's wrong on our control scheme, and B just like, no, that's of course how you do it, because that's how it should be done.
Yeah, Japanese style of circle to
No.
Yeah. Maru. The Maru is circle for yes.
I
know, right?
I don't care about what the picture is. I just, the thing on the right hand side implies moving away,
Okay.
which means cancel.
Oh.
in
I
my
see.
I see.
there's actually an interesting this is side thing, but Yahtzee on his extra punctuation thing, when he was doing a thing where he was like making a game every 2 weeks or every month. Every month, I think he was making a game.
Right.
Little indie game, little games, and showing his development process. And one of the dev diary things he was talking about his philosophy for controller stuff.
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite good. Which was basically like X being the button that's to the leftmost of the four.
Okay.
Being the thing that's like do something towards, like do something active, like attack or that kind of thing.
Okay, interesting. Yeah,
And then the bottom button is like,
engage your legs.
jump. Yeah, engage your legs. The right hand one is the opposite of the attack one, so that's like block or move backwards or something like that.
Yeah.
Or like roll or do something like
Right,
that.
okay.
And then the triangle is the like something special.
Right.
Or the top button is like something special.
I always kind of think of the triangle as where jump should sometimes be because it's like up. The only reason X works for me as a confirm is I think about it like when you have a contract in like a cartoon and they've listed an X
they
of
draw
where
the
you're
X
supposed to
sign?
sign as like you're confirming that this is a contract that you want to make, and that's the only reason that works in my brain, as that the X is acceptable as an accepting button.
Inventaris got it right. GameCube already solved this. You're right. God's perfect controller.
I don't know about that.
Just ask a Melee player.
That's
Yeah.
cheating.
Definitely try to talk to a Melee player for more than 10 seconds.
That's mean.
Anyway.
I'm rude for no reason. I have a friend who's really good at Melee, actually. Nice guy, too. So, yeah.
Actually, yeah. Just while we were going online, Beige out of context. I won't tell you why, but Beige said.
Oh, you're saying Beach wasn't out of context.
No,
We're
no,
just giving
the
it out of
out of
I
context.
context
promise
quote-
to also not tell you why. Let's find out.
Out of context quote from Beige. We should do that. They would really like it, and I don't want to do anything that chat likes.
Shit.
Oh,
Oh, that's mean.
oh,
You're right. I can't give context for that.
oh, Paul. I think you're my favorite person today. That was amazing.
And will you confirm that that is a quote that he
That
said?
is definitely something he said,
I
and it
will
is definitely
confirm
something he can't give you context for, because then he'd be nice to you.
I can't believe the size of the bus you just threw me under.
Such a good,
Such a great bus that was.
spicy chill point today.
So, I think
Molly, I'll tell you later.
other stuff for this. Other stuff for this story. The Nutcracker is indeed. I mean, it's one of those dumb. It's one of those silly things about when you're doing stories like this, right?
Yes.
Where it's like, what's this? We're making up. We're making all sorts of silly jokes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But we do the research to make sure we get the right bird for the smallest corvid.
I hate being yelled at in the comments.
Which
I
is a nutcracker. Which is, I mean, and again, we do the research because if nutcracker is not like, it's not a good. That joke would have worked better
Yes.
if the name of the bird was something else.
Yes. Like,
Like it's one of those things where like nutcracker kind of confuses the joke slightly.
yeah, it does.
Because people don't like, wait, the bird nutcracker thing. But that's what the smallest corvid is. So that's what we had to go with.
Now, that's not the same as a nuthatch. That is being asked in chat. And I thought maybe we meant a nuthatch. But I would assume that if we meant nuthatch, we would have said nuthatch. But even if not, having it be nutcracker was so good for the transition to seasonally appropriate nutcracker.
Yeah.
That was a joke that just gave itself. And it was so good.
And that was me just doing a Google image search for nutcracker. And it auto-completed to Nutcracker Fortnite. And I was like, wait, what?
Because the other correct answer would have been, what's the smallest corvid? And you like, because he was like, eat crow. It's like, what's the smallest corvid? Baby crow. An egg? It's like, yes, I will eat seasonally appropriate egg.
And so, so they're actually, I wrote a comment in the document that it was like, oh hey, the Nutcracker, there is a Nutcracker skin for Fortnite. I don't know why I'm surprised, because there's a skin for everything in Fortnite.
Mm-hmm.
Seems to be.
Anyway, so yeah, in the statement that they put out at the end, this blog post where they where they're kind of
Ashamed of their actions and deeds.
they're kind of mea culpa. Well, not, but the
Let's not go
the
that
thing where
far.
they're announcing.
They're not ashamed of their actions and deeds, are they?
No.
Of course not.
They're definitely, though, introducing the fact that it's like, this is just something we all do. Why are we getting picked on?
So yeah, there's this great. Here, let me switch here. So this is an article or a blog post on their website, and instead of sort of saying, "We did this stuff," we're sorry, we're sorry, we're fixing it, we did bad.
Mm-hmm.
The tenor of this post is, it's like an open letter to all mobile game or all game developers, being like, hey everybody, that thing that we've all been doing that we are all equally guilty of, so I don't know why they picked on us, but anyway, the thing that we've all been doing is actually wrong. I know that all of us collectively, so really none of us are to blame, but all of us thought that this was okay because we were marking our games T for teen. But it turns out the FTC says no. So we're just giving you all you other developers who are doing the same thing we're doing a heads up.
It's just a courtesy blog post is all this is. And if at any point, the only thing that's missing from this entire blog post is a Ko-fi link at the bottom to say, so if you want to, as a developer who have also broken this law, share in the fine that we have all collectively sharing here, you should all give some of your money to help pay this off too, because you are all as equally at fault about this as we are.
Yeah. So yeah, this like, all game developers should rethink steps that they've taken to simplify payment flows in favor of practices that provide the largest amount. So they're talking about like, we all wanted to make payments as easy as possible.
Yeah.
But it turns out that that's not always a good thing.
No.
If
you asked anyone who's involved in interface design who had any sort of ethical background, they would have told you
Wasn't
this is not a good idea.
See, Nintendo's way ahead on this. They don't let people buy anything.
It's so fucking complicated.
well, mostly just Beach at this point, from what we can tell. But
yeah.
Wasn't part of the whole story the fact that there were people internally to the company who knew, who said things?
And
so you can't just be like, hey, turns out what we didn't know.
And they have in like internal documents being like, support claims for the by far the largest support claim that they received is, I mistakenly made this purchase, please refund it.
Yeah.
Like by far.
And there's a thing there where I'm like, they have to be making more money they have to be making so much money that they are like, we don't care if it results in I'm going to make up a number, 30% rise in support cases. We don't care that we have to bring on so many more support staff to handle all this, to triage tickets, we don't give a shit about our support staff people having to do a whole bunch of what is essentially useless rollback tickets, or not doing them at all because we've written a policy that means that we get to keep people's money. We don't care about any of that. We're making so much money hand over fist that offsets the cost and then some. But also, somebody on our YouTube comments did say, I worked at a place that was called Epic. It's not Epic Games. It was called Epic, right? And we had our customer support line listed on our website. Epic Games hides their customer support line quite deep on their website, which means that when people Google Epic support line, they get us. And when they get us, they make angry phone calls asking us to refund their whatever.
Don't pretend you're not Epic Games.
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh my God. They're like, they were getting so, and I'm like, that's how Epic Games is getting away with it. Is they just make sure that everybody else gets bubbled up in the feed.
I love I would love the strategy that a company like when you try to call them for a refund.
Yeah.
A company like legitimately would employ the strategy of being like, no, you're thinking of a different company.
Yeah. That's not us.
And then they also have a thing here about like, developers who created teen-rated and mature-rated games can no longer assume they won't be deemed to be directed at children. The Fortnite is rated teen and is directed at an older teen and college-age audience.
It is not. It is not.
Anyway.
So the thing, it's funny, right? Because we have a similar kind of issue when it comes to YouTube, that we put up all of our stuff and say that this is not nothing we're making is deemed for kids.
Yes.
Right? And we had a brief moment where one of our videos or some of our videos got marked as, oh, this is clearly for children because it's about Magic the Gathering.
When did this happen?
This happened like last year sometime. Might have even been in 2020, but it was like a video or whatever got marked as, no, this is for kids. And it was like, because Magic the Gathering, and it's like, it is not, and we went in and we changed it back, and we didn't hear anything about it after that. It was not like a big like push and pull like that happens
I
sometimes.
don't recall any of this really happening.
This is like, I think it happened for like...
No, I know
video.
the event that happened because every content creator had a fit like they should have.
Yeah.
But I don't remember any of our videos getting marked and labeled wrong.
I think we had at least
we
one.
We had like a thing we had to go into to mark
To
our
let people
entire
know.
channel.
Yeah.
That please don't do whatever. But I don't recall us having like to go find videos.
There are other creators also that have had this happen to them where they've said, I'm making this thing, it's not for kids. It's definitely not for kids. It's some sort of like weird sexual Pokemon thing they put up on YouTube as animation. And then it was like, oh, that's for kids. And it got marked as for kids. And they're like, I need that to not be marked for kids. And they're trying to get that changed. But at least in our case where this happened with like the video that this happened to, or the videos that it happened to, it was a case of changing it. But there is that underlying fear of someday we're going to put a thing up that is marked that it's not supposed to be for kids, and someone's going to say, well, it's Magic the Gathering and that's a game and that means it's for kids because only kids play games, and then therefore this is automatically something for kids, and no, you can't change that back. And hey, what are you doing putting up this terrible video for kids when you do this? Whatever, we're taking like there's all that we know that there's these like steps that'll happen across 5 or 6 people's brains at YouTube that don't even talk to each other about this stuff, and there's this real fear that, hey, you made this thing for kids, and it's like, we didn't make this thing for kids. But are we now supposed to also think about, hey, kids might watch this? And I'm like, I don't know. Because, when it comes to a video game, it's like, well, could a kid play this? It's like, technically, yeah, a kid could play any game that comes out if they're not being supervised, right?
There's a big difference between...
I'm trying to get to that point of we're not marketing our stuff to kids. Epic was marketing their stuff to kids. And that's like the difference. And it's scary to think that we're in a position where it's like we might accidentally run into that. They were doing it purposefully and trying to get away with the fact, saying that, oh, we didn't have anything to do with this at all.
I mean, we don't market anything.
That's also true too.
I mean, Spurious in the chat is point that I said the thing to the comparison would be like, Joe the Camel or whatever, like the where cigarette companies were like, we don't market to kids, and people and the prosecutors, rightly so, were like, so why do you have a cartoon mascot?
Yeah. Yeah, you could make the same case like with the Flintstones when they were selling cigarettes using the Flintstones.
They did, in fact.
Yeah, and it's like, but, kids watch the Flintstones. It's like, yeah, but the Flintstones isn't intended for that audience. It's like, yeah, but also that kids watch cartoons. They will watch a cartoon for adults, even if they don't entirely get it, and then you are selling cigarettes using those cartoons. And that's kind of not kosher either. And it's weird because I don't want to be the person who's like, oh my God, think of the children. But when you're going out of your way to pull the kids into it when they shouldn't be, when there's like,
they are trying to argue, because I'd like to get away from that weirdness, but they're trying to argue that the teen rating means that it is marketed towards teens.
Yeah,
but that's not what the rating system is for. The rating system is for adults to look at and help monitor like what kind of content your kids are playing. It's not like, oh, this game is rated T. If a 10-year-old comes in and tries to buy a video game at the store, they're not going to sell it to them. That only works with the M rating games.
Right.
Yeah, and it's
There are literally adults out there who buy T-rated games for their kids because they think their kids are smart enough to be a teenager.
They're mature enough, they'll get it.
And-
But that's not what the rating system
grow
isn't
into
like
it.
a gate blocking thing of only this age group can play.
Yeah.
And it's also
true.
like, again, Graham talked about the thing on the ESRB website, right?
Yeah.
Like if you were looking up and because there's a lot of the reasons why things get the ratings that they do varies a lot, right? If something, if you're a parent who doesn't particularly care if your kid's, playing something where you get to, shoot bad guys.
Yeah.
Like the content, the actual like gameplay of Fortnite, I don't think is particularly mature,
Right. Yeah.
right? Like, is probably fine for kids to play.
Yeah.
The teen, the sort of the part that is not good for kids is not the gameplay, right? It's the monetization
Absolutely.
system, which is sort of not. It isn't super sort of clear. You almost need two different ratings or something. That would just complicate the issue.
Yeah, that's true.
But-
It'd be hard to tell what anything means. But
I mean, it's like the Halo games, while could be rated T, for most likely,
yeah.
are I believe all rated M, because basically Microsoft doesn't want to bother
Yeah, that's fair.
trying to
Yeah.
figure out, trying to mitigate that.
It's weird.
And they
'cause-
don't, and
Yeah.
they don't really have the same kind of stuff. But
And you can't just turn around to simplify it and be like, well, what if we just named everything that had online microtransactions as being M for mature? Like that you have to be.
Oh, but there are people who are trying to get that to happen,
yeah,
and
it's like,
I
and don't
kind
think
of
that's an answer either. Like
I kind of think it should be if microtransactions are being done in a predatory way at all times.
true. Yeah. I mean,
it's
the other option, I guess, is like this thing that Epic is saying here, where they're like, hey, fellow devs. Since we are all doing this terrible thing, we are all apparently this terrible thing that we've all been doing for years that is not terrible and it doesn't seem to harm a whole ton of kids. It's like, yeah, if that leads to everyone being like, we need to implement a much smarter idea to do microtransactions with that slows down this kind of process. And it's weird, right? Because like to me, it's like I for a while wasn't even storing my credit card information on my Switch. And also to access my credit card, I need to know my password. I'm like, okay, that's all valuable, but you can give your password to a kid and they'll remember it. You could make a thing where it's like, well, you can only make purchases for about a 5-minute window once you've given your password, and then after that, you'll have to put it in again. It's like, again, not going to slow anybody down who's like, I want to keep buying stuff, when I'm not being supervised. That doesn't slow anybody down. You could make it a thing that you have to type in your credit card number every time. That will be so irritating to people who are responsible gamers, right? Adults who want to purchase stuff, that they won't want to engage in that, and they'll find it super frustrating and they'll complain about it all the time.
Okay, but every time you make a purchase on any of these stores, you get an email
There's that too.
letting you know that purchase has been made.
Yeah.
There's like, it sounds like you're arguing, well, people can still just do it anyway, so why bother? But every roadblock you put up is an extra step that, while yes, a child can get around, doesn't stop, is still different than just letting stuff flow like water.
I think what I'm trying to say is that if there's going to be a solution, it's going to be multifaceted, because everything that I just said was like, that's one idea to fix the problem, and it's like none of those things fixes the problem in one fell swoop.
Well, no.
So there's but it was like, I guess what I'm saying, if it's a multifaceted solution, also there are going to be points about it that someone smarter than me is going to have to come up with to think about, here's how we could make that kind of thing happen so we could still have microtransactions, we can do whatever else. The easiest thing to do would just be to not do microtransactions through the game,
Yes.
Just take that out entirely and be like, you want to buy DLC, you want to do whatever, you got to go to the store and then regulate the stores differently.
You
and
told me you tried to buy lottery tickets on an app,
it was absolutely a pain in the ass. Yes.
but it also had like a limit
Yeah.
and a bunch of other things.
Yep.
And I don't think it would be necessarily wrong to have that for microtransactions.
No, I would agree to be like, if you're setting up your credit card in Fortnite to be like, I'm setting a $10 daily limit to buy stuff off of or you can only spend 100 V-Bucks or 500 V-Bucks or whatever in a week or something like that, and
Yeah.
kind of make it as a thing for it's like, I only want to have this limit set. I'd set it at the beginning and then I move on, and then that's still like, yeah, that's another step that then it's another tool a parent
Like
could
what I'm
use.
saying is, we already treat gambling
Yeah.
in this way, but everyone wants to refuse to look at these things in the same way as gambling because that would cut their money.
Yes. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
not self-interested to make it happen. Whereas the government who runs the lottery is like, we are interested in selling you lottery tickets, but we are also interested in the greater societal good. So we are putting up roadblocks to make it more difficult and to help you not make stupid decisions. To help people, or to help people who can't trust themselves to not spend a ton of money.
It's generally roadblocks are a way to slow things down, to help you take a moment to think.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the whole reason why they put candy bars near the cash register is because you have less time before you're about to hit the cash register and you see something you like, you're more likely to pick it up and buy it.
Yeah, all these impulse purchases, yeah.
It's a fascinating because again I have done a lot of work in like web development, and of course in that in that realm there's a lot of work, even aside from the dark pattern stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work done in streamlining purchases and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Famously, Amazon one click.
Yes.
And so it's like how much does that have to be, how much of that is sort of at what point does that start to be sort of predatory to just make it as easy as possible for people to buy things so they aren't angered by your website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, and putting a bunch of roadblocks is not necessarily, there's the old thing with like the like Windows security thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which every version of Windows, in order to be more secure, pops up more windows. Like, say you download something from the internet and you want to install it.
Yeah.
You'll get often get 2 or 3 things like pop up. This could be dangerous for you. Okay.
Yeah.
Pop up. This other thing that's running could be dangerous for you. Pop. This thing wants to access the internet. Pop.
And everyone's like, yeah, I will just keep clicking
Yeah,
okay though after a while.
Keep clicking okay. Like at a certain point, you get this sort of blindness too, and it's like
pop-up fatigue or something like that.
and
yeah.
it's like
alert fatigue.
my objective is to install this program.
Yeah.
So, like, I've already decided to install this program.
Mm-hmm.
So the more windows being put up in my way isn't stopping me from installing the program. It's just annoying me.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult, it's like a difficult question. How to, how much of that is like sort of trying to, for people's own good, trying to.
There are
And there's clearly
limits.
There's it's a sort of a fuzzy area,
but
there's
like
certain extremes.
what Epic is being being said that they've been doing is things like keeping people's credit card details without their
Right.
knowledge,
And-
right?
Without making it
That's-
clear that they are doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And-
it's like that. That's a little bit different than we threw up 3 pop-ups.
And from what I understand, from both what Epic says themselves and from other reporting and things, the current state, after they've gotten into big trouble from all of various different things,
Yeah.
the current state of Fortnite transaction things is not too bad. They don't store credit cards. There's all sorts of, they have put in stuff in all these various things in place. It took them a while, and they made a lot of money off not doing that. But the current situation is pretty good.
Okay. Right.
in that regard. But that's sort of how.
I find it
Compared to your average mobile game, Fortnite is downright chill about monetization at this point.
I find it funny that they make that when companies go, okay, we won't allow refunds, because the whole point, like, refunds started as a thing to get people to buy more stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Because what it does is it smooths out cognitive dissonance.
It means that you're not going to sit in the store and think about what if you don't want it. You're just going to buy it and think, well, I can just bring it back if I don't want it. But chances are better that you will not bring it back, because that's the harder thing to do
Yeah.
Right.
than it was to buy the thing.
It counteracts buyer's remorse.
Yeah.
Is the idea. Yeah.
And of course, they can make it a lot harder if they want.
So I find it really funny when you have companies that are like, oh, we'll make refunds harder to do. Because like Steam allowed added refunding for games that hadn't been played for like past a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that like did anything for them.
Mm-hmm.
Refunds being a digital thing
I mean, I think
might be just like, oh, that's too easy to do. But
I think that was if I don't know what it changed in terms of their revenues and so forth. I think it was certainly seen as a positive move from like a PR perspective. Like
Right.
everyone was quite happy with that as a move. They're like, hey, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Yeah.
I've definitely returned a game or two that ended up being
Not
very,
what it said.
very broken.
Yeah. I have done that once or twice. Also, just like buying games on it when I didn't, or buying like the wrong version of a game or something like that.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always annoying.
All right. Well, let's move on. To
Right. And the difference between the fine is that the FTC is taking half of it as this is your punishment, and the other
Right.
half is you have to refund this to consumers.
Right.
And I'm like, I like that's how that plays out too, because people always complain about the fact that these fines come out and the money goes into the government, and then where does it go? It's like, well, it's a fine. It's meant to be spread around to the treasury, whatever. But it's like, no. Half of this has to go back to the people who are affected. That seems like justice.
It's also like it's not even like that isn't even really what I like the part to the FCC. I would call a fine.
The FTC, yeah.
FTC.
Yeah.
That's a fine.
Yes.
The other part, that's just like that's just refunding money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's money that they made.
Yeah.
That they're now giving back to the people.
Yeah, I kind of
there's
would've
not
preferred
there's not
that-
an additional penalty. Like the additional
Yeah.
penalty on top of that is the FTC thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I kind of prefer if the FTC got the whole amount, and on top of that, they had to refund a bunch of people.
I got a
But that's also because Epic makes an awful lot of money, and I'm not sure how much money you need to actually hit them with to make them feel the knife twist.
Yeah. There's that too.
I feel like I need like a spreadsheet or somebody needs to maybe if there already
tracker.
is one. Yeah, some sort of like Epic lawsuit tracker, like because obviously there's like the Epic Apple thing that's
Yes.
ongoing, and then there's all these sort of regional ones. There's obviously the one that we talked about in Quebec.
Yeah.
I got an email last week about a class action lawsuit in BC here in British Columbia that had apparently gone through. That if I had bought a loot box from Fortnite or Rocket League in like before I think 2020 or something, then I was eligible for up to $25. I hadn't, so I guess I'm not. But I don't know if they just like send it out to all Epic customers who live in BC. But yeah, I feel like the just keeping track of all these different lawsuits, and like from what I understand, lawsuits they don't necessarily like interact. Like they can in certain circumstances, but in a lot of cases they sort of weirdly don't interact. Like just because you're considered guilty of doing the thing here
Right.
doesn't mean but you even if you're being accused of the exact same thing, it doesn't sort of automatically transfer over. Anyway, let's talk about the GB Interceptor.
Yeah.
Heather got that too. No, I don't have an Epic account. I will not add another launcher to my computer, no matter how many free games they give away.
The GB Interceptor, which is a way to it's a little add-on to the original Game Boy, or I guess theoretically can be used for other things too. Our other Game Boy systems.
It plugs into the original DMG, it plugs into the Game Boy Color, and it plugs into the Game Boy Advance. But it only interfaces with classic Game Boy games, the black and white games.
And what's interesting, so this is one of these interesting things where, so this is a cool hack where you put it in and then it does a whole bunch of fancy stuff and allows you to output the view of the Game Boy to a computer.
Yeah, USB webcam
so
style.
you can stream it.
Yeah.
And it's one of these interesting things where, the guy posted this and a lot of people were like, hey, that's super cool. But then a ton of people were like, why?
Yeah.
There's literally like 30 other ways to get like you can, like there's, stuff like the Analog Pocket. There's two official things, like there's the Game Boy Player and the Super Game Boy.
Oh, we can get into that.
both of which can do that.
Yep.
Like there's all sorts of different ways to get Game Boy video onto, and there's emulators and
there's all sorts of other pieces of hardware that you can mod your Game Boy with. You can have like standalone Game Boy things. Yeah.
And so this particular thing, this was a very specific purpose, which was in order to make a system so that you could put the Game Boy onto a computer from an original Game Boy without any modifications to the original Game Boy.
Yeah.
And that's the trick.
Yeah.
Because the only port that is actually accessible in an original Game Boy is the cartridge slot.
Yeah, that's the only thing that has any sort of view into the internals of the device. I mean, you could count the link cable, which you could count the audio port, which you do need to plug in the audio port separately to get audio from the thing if you're streaming it.
I didn't think you could get as much information from the link cable.
No, it's designed to
You'd
to
only
only
get
work
certain,
Yeah.
And so the interesting thing about this is that, so it's you plug it in and it basically sits between the game cartridge and the Game Boy, reading off all the information that the cartridge is sending back, and then also reading the information that the Game Boy is sending back to the cartridge.
Yeah.
Because of course, like Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and N64 games, all the cartridge-based systems, the actual cartridge itself is more complicated than just a data dump.
Yeah, it's not just a flash cart.
It actually has logic in there, and it's got stuff in there, extra chips sometimes, and it's also got stuff where it reacts to things. So there's this. It's a really interesting idea because this is an emulator that's sitting there. It can read what the cartridge is sending, and it can read what the Game Boy is sending back to the cartridge, but it can't actually read the inputs that the Game Boy is getting.
Yeah.
So it's basically guessing what the inputs the Game Boy is getting based on how the RAM
looks
is changing.
Yeah, because what you'll have is because if you make an input on your Game Boy, if you make an input, that input has to go to the CPU, and the CPU has to process that against what it's already processing, and all that stuff gets processed and then gets spit into RAM and into the video RAM segment essentially, and then that's what gets put on your screen.
And so there's some really interesting sort of weirdnesses with this that he showed. I mean, and so this is specifically for he was making it specifically for Tetris.
Yeah.
And it's possible that it wouldn't work as well for other games.
Yeah, there's a couple things that he can't read because he doesn't have access across the cartridge bus to read the div counter. He can't read that. There's like another thing he can't read as well. It's like
one of the cool things they were talking about for like two-player mode, where you have two-player Tetris, and like when you get a line, it drops garbage on the other person's screen, right? Mm-hmm. Because it can read the RAM, and it can have I guess it can pull the data from the link cable as well, or that data is sent. So it's got that data, of where the garbage things are.
Right.
But it turns out that there's like, 5 or 6 different patterns, different textures that the garbage can take.
Yeah.
Because it's just black and white, so it's not actually colors, but different things.
Yeah, different patterns.
And those are randomly generated on the Game Boy and never sent anywhere. So the person sees on the Game Boy screen and what goes up on the screen, the garbage pieces will be in the same spots, but they will look different. There'll be different patterns
because
on the screen than there, because
it has
there's no way to know.
Yeah, it's like I have to use a different random seed to figure out what the stuff should be, so they don't match. And also, if you don't start the interceptor first, if you start everything else up and then start the interceptor, that can also mean that it's not getting the right information as well, and so you have to like turn that thing on first, then turn the Game Boy on, like do all that kind of stuff. There's a whole way to do it. Go watch the video, because it is fascinating to see the decisions of what it is that you do. And I love that his whole thing is like, well, so what I did was, because I could see the RAM, I made a copy of the RAM, and then I had to emulate it on board, which means I had to write an emulator. But the only parts I have to emulate are how to draw stuff to the screen, like how to calculate what the RAM should be doing in a Game Boy and draw stuff to the screen, which means I didn't have to write any part that knows how to interpret controls. So it's like all he's doing is emulating half of a Game Boy and not like another half of the Game Boy. He just gets to ignore completely.
And apparently the part that was actually the worst was doing the output to webcam.
Right.
Because, it plugs into a computer and pretends to be a webcam, basically. But he's saying the problem is that because of the amount of data that you're trying to send across, which you're like, it's a Game Boy. It's not sending very much data.
No.
Which is true if you're just trying to send the regular Game Boy data, which is like 2 bits at whatever, 120 by something
It's
screen.
160 by 140, something like that.
Yeah. Is teeny weeny.
Yeah.
But there is no webcam protocol available for Linux, Mac, or Windows that can deal with a video stream that's 160 by whatever at 2 bits. At 2 bits. It's just such a weird thing. And so he basically has to interpolate it up to like a actual like normal video signal.
Yeah.
So it's sending way more data than it actually has to. He's like, theoretically, I could have written a driver on the other end as well, and it was like, but I didn't want to do that.
So what I think is, this is interesting because it's like, what a great novel way of making an interface device, like, or rather making a video capture card for a portable device. What a very novel way of doing it. What an interesting way to kind of execute that. Because my question is, who makes one for the 3DS? Who makes one for any other kind of handheld device after this? Because the thing he made has to emulate the device that he's capturing from, but it only has to do only half the work. But that's a lot of work, right? Because he's also using an RP2040, and they're not as powerful, but it's like whatever. I'm like, could somebody? We're not able to get 3DS capture cards anymore, it seems.
Yes.
Yeah. And so it's like, what if somebody wrote a thing that was like, I made a thing that can go into the system through like any of these ports that exist, and it can actually access and see, like, what if the 3DS has that similar kind of ability? What if it could work the same way? And then you can make a thing, it's a big box and a big ribbon cable or whatever, but what if that is a way to actually do it?
So there has to be a way to do it because Nintendo uses official hardware in order to do their marketing stuff.
Right. And they don't have we've seen the kiosk
It's
builds.
it's not like a special modded.
Well,
It's definitely not like an official hardware that has like a thing out on it, but they clearly have versions of that do.
I mean,
like the capture cards that were being made for the 3DS were an additional piece of hardware that were attached to the back.
yeah.
right. But like I can imagine there might be like a header, or there's something like on the board that they can make a special version of the 3DS that's got an video output on it, and then it could theoretically be modded to use that. But the idea of doing it without being modded is tricky.
What we know is that there is a jumper switch. You have to solder this essentially, or break the solder or do whatever to turn any DS from normal mode into kiosk mode. There is that on a DS, and that makes me wonder then, is there such an animal on, like, what undocumented traces on these boards do things that people haven't quite learned about yet? Because everyone is, all the people who are into modding, I'm sure, are tearing these things apart and trying to figure out how they all work, and then being like, oh, we don't know what this does, and then somebody tries a thing like, oh, now we know what this does. And so there could be a thing where it's like, oh, we finally found the thing that says, spit this out over whatever hardware. Now we just have to figure out how that hardware works, how it's built, so we could start spitting that stuff out.
The trick now is, with more recent systems, I would guess that one, there's probably, like, the cartridge reading system is probably more just pulling data. There's probably less
computation going back across the bus.
And also because of the rise of ROMs and hacking and that kind of stuff, I would guess that there's encryption and stuff, whereas you can't just like read the memory straight off of it. There's probably something in the way of doing that, but who knows. Anyway, it's fun. I like we always talk about cool console video game hacks because I find them fascinating. The way people, especially these like older systems where the system is so old and we've surpassed it so far, like this little chip that you plug in has an emulator for like we're at the point now where an emulator for especially like an original Game Boy could literally fit onto anything,
an FPGA quite easily.
So it's kind of cool that way.
And what I'm advocating is, we have a raid. Hello, Wheelers Cowboys.
Hello.
Rodeo.
The rodeo, thank you. Yes, but this isn't our first rodeo. We've had them here before, I think.
It's never Wheeler's first rodeo.
No. The point I'm making is that the orthogonal thought involved in saying, I could make it like this, where I don't have to emulate a whole friggin' Game Boy. Right. It's like, that's what is appealing to me, is the fact there's still people out there who are like, what if I strictly restrict the use case, this person wants, I said I was going to go over this, but I strictly restrict my use case because this is what I'm being asked for. What can I come up as a novel way of approaching the problem? And I'm like, that makes me think that there is so much more room for other orthogonal thought when it comes to doing handheld emulation or capture or like all those other kind of things that we haven't seen the end of that. That's like when the Ultra HLE came out for the N64, where it was like, what if we just did high level? You don't have to do it all low level, right? Like those kind of things. So I said I was going to bring this up, and I did in the comments. People are like, does he not know what a Super Game Boy is? It's like, okay, the guy who requested it, you have to go watch the video, but the guy who requested it was like, this is an online Tetris tournament, and I want to play it on my Game Boy because that's what it's for. It's for the original Game Boy. Normally you'd be doing these things in person, and you'd have like maybe link cables or whatever.
And everything is, they're based on muscle memory.
Yeah, and so if you know how to use a Game Boy and your muscle memory makes you very good at Tetris, but only on the Game Boy because it's different. If you put a Nintendo controller or a Super Nintendo controller in your hand, that's different for where your thumbs go.
I bet the like D-pad and the buttons on his Game Boy are like all dished out.
Yeah,
like,
probably
from where.
And it's like, that's the big reason why it was like, make this happen on an original DMG. And the other reason is like, even if you played on Super Game Boy, the Super Game Boy runs at a different speed than the original Game Boy. They fixed that with the Super Game Boy 2, which was only released in Japan. And I don't know how easy those are to get a hold of at this point. So even if you're like, well, I can make do with this controller, it's like, you can't make do with the Super Game Boy because it operates at a different speed. It's not the same thing.
All right.
We done?
We done.
I'm done, yeah.
Let us move on to something more fun.
I love talking about hardware mods.
Yeah, but
I know, it's going to eat up all our time. It has eaten up all our time.
there's only so much to say about it, and I don't understand half of it.
I'm sorry.
And so I don't care.
That's you make an excellent point.
All right. Well, let's talk about Atari, because let's talk about a more modern video game console. Atari. I mean, this story is basically laughing at them, which I think is a fair thing to be doing.
Yeah.
Poor Atari. Have they built their hotel yet?
No. In fact, I believe part of that $11 million write-down
On Atari tokens
was ending the partnership with somebody who was doing that.
They should just stick to making distressed T-shirts. That's all people want out of them these days is a T-shirt that looks like it's from the 80s that you bought yesterday.
I mean, they've got the distressed part figured out.
Yeah, I've never seen a company so stressed.
They so yeah, this is stories about them like saying the dual businesses of boutique console manufacturing and cryptocurrency NFTs. That's like, the you couldn't come up with like two areas in the video game industry that are more full of scams and terrible things. And they're doing both.
It's just so hard to make a new console that competes these days.
Yeah.
Right.
And this was just meant to be... And this isn't like the Amico. This was supposed to be like, it's the Atari again with a whole bunch of games that you've already seen us make. Like,
yeah. And it's like, I mean, and they've...
Nostalgia trip.
Yeah, it is.
But
really.
it's like it's way too late.
Yeah.
Like, people who have nostalgia for Atari...
Yeah.
Are they all dead?
They're a few years older than me. Like, I was going to make this point.
Are they all dead?
No, they're in their 60s because Atari's 50 years old. And
Yeah.
it's like, I had a Coleco Gemini, which was a ColecoVision and Atari kind of combined into one thing. You can read about it. It's fascinating. But I played that when I was 6.
Like, the time to capitalize on, like, Atari nostalgia was, like, 20 years ago.
It sure was.
There's a variety of ways to capitalize on nostalgia, and maybe putting out a piece of hardware isn't necessarily the best way.
Like, is it T-shirts?
Yeah.
Because whatever, snot-nosed millennials will wear them and be like, I just thought it was a cool design.
Yeah, like, and
That's how I get all my T-shirts.
Yeah.
Like the Atari VCS TV plug-in console thing that they were trying to make. I swear 10 years ago they tried to do it then as well. When 10 years ago it was really the hot thing to be able to just like plug in a Pac-Man or plug in like a Sega Genesis whatever and play Golden Axe. Like I feel like that stuff was 2010, and I'm like, if you didn't like bring it all home at that point, clearly Atari's thing now is like remarket our stuff in an app for a phone. Hopefully you'll get people who want to buy all the stuff.
I mean, I think their thing at this point is we'll do whatever to make money in whatever way,
Yeah.
What can we, how can we extract the last little
Yeah,
vestiges?
I'm sure those business meetings are very painful.
Yeah.
The two things that I love about this financial report. Most of this info is from the this 2022 financial report that Atari released. What the two parts that I like about it the most, they're talking about that they this 11 million dollar.
It was 11, yeah, for Atari tokens.
Well, no, yeah. Here we go. Yeah, the termination with ICICB, which apparently that was the people they were working with to make the Atari chain license. See, the weird thing is, including the Atari chain license and the related licenses, including hotels and casinos. So I don't know if they were also working on that, but whatever the case, I love that there's two sentences in a row. This termination resulted in a write-off of Atari's accounting records for the year ending in March 31st, 2022, for an amount of $11 million.
Okay.
Next sentence. Following the termination of the joint vendor, Atari has announced its intent to create a new token with a focus on gaming community and utility. It's like the next sentence is you launching another token.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, everybody. This token's not working. We're gonna scrap it. What are we gonna do instead?
Make one for gamers.
I have a new token idea. What?
Brilliant.
Yeah. Don't worry. This one will work.
Yeah. How is this one different than the previous one?
We're actually gonna look at gamers this time.
It's for gamers and community.
Isn't that what we were doing last time?
And utility.
Yeah.
No. Last time we thought, what about not the gamer?
Yeah.
What does making a token for utility and community mean? Anyway,
I have to assume this is because whoever is investing them are crypto bros. Like I have to assume where the investment is coming from is largely people who are like.
I think they're taking investment from literally anyone they can get it from.
Yeah, but I think like their steering committee or whoever it is kind of like trying to run the show. I think it's going to be largely people who are crypto bros because they're kind of like, or they're like, hey, I know of a Ponzi scheme where we can extract maximum value from people who don't, we just have to launch a new token and not tie it to hotels and casinos. Now we have to do it ourselves and keep the money for ourselves. Because that's the problem is that when the money came in, these people walked away with it or they effed it up. But if we do it ourselves, then we can keep all the money and everyone else can get screwed.
Has Atari considered making an arcade? Bringing back arcades?
Yeah. I mean,
they're big money.
Especially once like...
Whenever,
maybe in another year when like we've really tamped down.
Like
on COVID.
Atari made arcade games for a while, right? But it's weird to me because I'm like, whenever I think of like, if you say, hey, name me a classic Atari arcade game, the first one I think of is Defender. That was made by Midway. It wasn't Atari at all. It was on the Atari at some point, but it's like the only Atari game I can name in an arcade that I'm 100% sure is real is San Francisco Rush.
All I'm saying is the only Atari token I want to see is the kind I get from the Atari arcade.
It's true, yeah.
That you can then like give into the place and you get like a stuffed animal or something.
Yeah.
The other part of this that I love is they have a section under their assets for digital asset holdings. As of September 30th, 2022, digital assets held by the company are recorded under intangible assets include 972 parcels of land in the Sandbox metaverse.
You can have
the historic
spacing of land digitally.
Yeah.
I like the historical cost of those lands is zero, given the fact that when they were given, there was no active market for the land. Given the high volatility of these assets, whose value changes depending in particular on the cryptocurrency environment, and a illiquid market, it is difficult to assign an aggregate value to these assets.
It's zero!
I like an illiquid market.
God damn
As in
it.
there is no market.
There's no demand and there's no way to sell them. They're not worth anything.
Oh no. Although they could be worth more than their other digital asset, which is 259 million ATRI tokens. Which are the tokens that they were making on the Atari chain.
They should just make more of those, then they'll have even more money.
And they're like, Atari does not intend to sell ATRI tokens it holds, nor pursue its development in any way. I mean, I guess there's some accounting reason why I just love that they list the tokens that they made and then canceled because they're worthless.
Yeah.
No,
They listed the exact number of these manufactured fake things that they made up.
I could have millions of bins of paper clips that would have more value than this weird digital thing that they've made that they're keeping track of for a reason.
If I shit my pants once, everyone calls me an idiot and laughs at me. If I shit my pants 250 million times, I'm a billionaire.
Well, no, actually, you might have some medical problems.
You have a problem. I just love that there's like some accountant is like, wait, I've done the math and I've gone through all the documents. This is not. We actually have 255 million ATRI tokens. We're gonna have to do a whole press conference. We're gonna have to do we're gonna have to put out a change thing. Yeah.
Wow, there's just a break in reality here.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, a reality that thinks that digital parcels of land are worth.
I mean, I think again, maybe there's an accounting reason why it's like it's stupid, but we have to declare that we have them technically, even though they're worthless.
Like if Atari,
if I guess down the road for some bizarre reason they become valuable.
Consider doing a digital clean out and just getting rid of the stuff that's not worth anything.
Yeah, maybe at a certain point you're just hoarding.
I can't if Atari had brand value still, then you would assume that at this point there would have been a few large companies jockeying to acquire the Atari brand.
I mean, there were.
Right.
That's why they've been bought and sold a million times.
Right. But they were never were they ever companies that were, because it's not as if
they've been bought by companies attempting to exploit their name.
Yes.
For a long time.
But it's not like Activision Blizzard came along and said, yo, we have to buy Atari so we can own the Atari brand because there's value there that we could be extracting from it. Because we have a ton of money and Atari is worth nothing. And if we had bought it and put it in our brand portfolio, we could do all sorts of cool things with Atari stuff, all that nostalgia, but also maybe put things under the studio, whatever. Maybe they should,
because then maybe they could use that reason towards why they're not a monopoly.
Like, at no point did Xbox say, we have to acquire Atari.
Don't worry, we're going to buy this brand that has no value to prove that we're not a monopoly.
Yeah. The Embracer Group hasn't reached out and said, we should buy the Atari brand.
Activision goes, we commit that we will put Call of Duty on the Atari for the next 10 years.
Yes. I mean, who wouldn't want that job at that point, right? But there's it's really, if there was anybody else out there that was like, there is value we can extract from this because we see that it is a valuable brand for the video game industry, they would have done it, and they have not. It is a dying budget brand. Buy a T-shirt, think of the past, but move on.
Is that their new slogan? Buy a T-shirt, think of the past, but move on.
Yeah.
It's a good slogan.
Stop giving it Atari. Don't give a shit about us. We don't matter.
Be an interesting kind of reverse psychology. I mean, try everything else. Maybe it would work. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga collection. Just got a big update.
Yeah, I hear that you're changing the way that the logo looks on the Switch.
Yeah, apparently that's the thing that people are most excited about.
Yeah.
Is that they really nobody liked the home screen icon.
Yeah.
One, it didn't actually say the Cowabunga collection or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on it. It just was a picture of the four of them.
Oh, that is a little confusing, yeah.
A picture of the four turtles.
Yeah.
Also, they did a thing where around the it's a little bit like how what people used to do for iPhone app icons, where they did this thing where around the edge of it
there's a frame.
There's a frame that's in, so it looks like it's sort of inset into your dashboard.
Right.
Which is kind of cool unless you have your Switch on dark mode, in which it doesn't work. It just looks ugly.
Great.
So they changed it so it's just the box art, which is sort of what everyone else does. I believe they also either added or improved the multiplayer, online multiplayer in a bunch of the games too, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, they did more stuff than just.
But
but that was the thing I saw everybody writing icon, about it. That was the only thing they had updated. And
the best part is is the post somewhere? There was a thing where they're when they announced it, they were like, "We listen. We have heard." The Twitter post was a little bit okay, we get it. We have changed the icon.
Yes,
we are listening.
The rest of these patch notes were extensive and covered all sorts of like, we're making a change to this game, we're making a change to, like, a lot of games got big updates. This is a big update. The big one everyone seems to really focus on is online multiplayer for Turtles in Time.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is pretty awesome.
I agree.
The other kind of fun thing is that a lot of these games, of course, were originally arcade games. I mean, they were brought to home consoles as well, but the versions that are in the system are the arcade versions. And so they've done some stuff to, like, I think these are things that actually could have been adjusted in the arcade, depending on how much of an asshole you're, what kind of an arcade you're running.
That's right.
So stuff like number of lives per coin.
Oh, yeah.
Because remember, arcades back in the day, you could do that, right? You could be like,
Set it as low as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually 3.
so they've got the, like, difficulty adjustments, number of lives per coin, frame delay. Yeah, I think there's actually, like, rollback networking and stuff for that.
I mean, my understanding is early arcade games didn't have, like, lives and stuff in the same way. So they, after a portion of time, people got so good at them that they could play, like, forever under one coin. And then because of that was when they started, like, trying to adjust games to be harder and do things in order to extract more money.
Which I think is...
It was like, it's like the original, pay to win loot boxes.
Yeah. I disagree with that kind of thing as well, because I'm like, what you want a guy to come in and, like, spend an hour playing the game and finishing the game in front of all the other people who, like, are like, whoa, wait, he's gonna, like, do whatever, and you want them flocking to the game to watch him do whatever.
You want that, like, the scene from, like, the 80s movie.
Exactly.
Where it's like, oh, he's got the highest score on whatever.
You want to do that because it gets everyone hyped and it gets them spending more money in the arcade, and I mean, they're busy watching, so they're not doing anything then.
The wizard moment.
But now all of a sudden they're like, oh, I want to play that game too because it looks awesome. Like, there's all this stuff you can do. And it's like, that's what you want, is you want to get people hyped about the game. And the best way to do that is...
It's true, though, that people watching are not putting quarters into machines.
It's true, yeah.
But, like, there was a whole thing where people were modding their arcade cabinets to make them and whatnot. I mean, isn't that how, like, Midway Express basically started? Midway Arcade? Or
that's
or
where
one of the other ones?
Williams...
But to like add different content to make the game new and update it, but also to make it harder in order to get more coins.
I believe that's where, like, Ms. Pac-Man first came from. Yeah.
Okay, so it was Midway.
But the
they got sued and then bought and, like, a bunch of weird stuff.
Yeah. But
I think they won that lawsuit.
Anyway, you can also
they had to promise not to do certain things in order to not lose that lawsuit.
For the Turtle game, for the games that came out on speaking of original Game Boy.
Yes.
For the ones that came out in black and white on original Game Boy, they've also added, like, different color palettes.
Yeah.
So that you can mess with things.
I love those games.
Oh, that's fun.
I played the first one. I never got to play the other ones, but the first one was dope. It was really good.
All right, let's talk. There's not too many, but let's talk about some of the stories that didn't make it into the episode.
Speaking of updates,
Chocobo GP has gotten a real big update, the Season 5 update, which you might be slightly surprised at because it came out, I believe, in March 2022.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people were unhappy with it when it came out
seasons.
as well, because it's very microtransaction heavy and wasn't. I think this isn't the first game in this series, and people liked, like, earlier iterations that didn't have stuff like that.
I'll be back, sorry.
So the season 5 update, 2 new racers, new stage based on Midgar from Final Fantasy VII, which is pretty cool. If you did like it, I'm sad to say that the other thing that they have announced is that this will be the last update for the game. And in fact, sales of Mithril, the in-game currency. So not only will this be the last update, but the game is actually going to be going away, I guess, because they've stopped sales of Mithril, the in-game currency, and they're closing the shop, and
I'm pretty sure, like, this was a game you paid money for, and then there were, like, microtransactions on top of that. So it's more likely that they're not going to do any more dev for it, and they're not going to try to sell more stuff through it.
Okay. So the rankings will continue, but there won't be prizes anymore because they were giving out Mithril as prizes, and there's no Mithril anymore. And you can keep playing Chocobo GP itself. So.
Yeah, but like if this came out in March and now we're in like the end of December, and they're like, this is the last thing we're doing. Either they thought this would go on longer and that this would make a lot of money, or they're cutting. They're moving on to other projects that they think will make them more money.
Yeah.
That's why you stop doing stuff like this.
Yep. Cut their losses. Another legal thing that won't go into a huge amount of detail on this, but I thought it was interesting and kind of odd that apparently this is a thing that actually is allowed and can happen.
Okay.
So, well, we talked about how the FTC is suing Microsoft to block the Microsoft Activision merger.
Yes.
We talked about that last week.
Yeah.
Separately, Microsoft is also being sued by 10 gamers from California, New Jersey, and Mexico who have banded together to file a lawsuit against Microsoft.
Okay.
Because in their complaint that they're going to reduce competition, like basically the same reasons the FTC doesn't want to do it. In their complaint, plaintiffs described Activision Blizzard as crucial rival that drives industry-wide innovation and price competition. If the acquisition allowed, the public could suffer loss and damages because Microsoft would supposedly wield more market power than it already does. And it would grant the ability to foreclose on rivals, limit output, reduce customer choice, raise prices, and further inhibit competition.
I didn't think you could sue a company over that stuff as like a private citizen.
So
I thought that had to be like taken out by like the government and other like the people who are already suing them over these things.
Yeah. So in this article on Ars Technica, it's saying under the Clayton Antitrust Act, consumers have similar rights as industry competitors to oppose acquisitions like this one, allowing courts to weigh anti-competitive harms raised by consumers.
Huh.
So yeah, it's apparently this is a thing that can happen. It feels unnecessary considering the FTC is already doing it, but presumably this was in the works before they announced that. Yeah, and it's like, wait, you can sue a company for having a monopoly on a particular friend? I don't know. Maybe Microsoft has to commit to giving these guys copies of Call of Duty for the next 10 years. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know what to say to that. This is weird.
It's weird. My feeling is that this might be one of those things where like some people have a bunch of money and the lawyer is like, I guess I can file the stuff. Let's do this, I guess.
If you have a lawyer who really wants to do it and they need a client in order to do it, that's also a potential reason.
It just, yeah. I mean, it as a layperson, it seems odd, but you know what? Maybe this is a thing that can happen.
This is maybe the first time I've seen what I would actually call maybe gamers rise up.
Yeah. I guess, yeah.
Weird.
So yeah.
Huh,
I guess I hope what would be really weird is if like the FTC thing.
If the FTC wins before their lawsuit goes through or doesn't get worked out or whatever, then can't they use that as a reason why they should win?
Or like what would be cool is if the FTC, loses, but these guys win and block it. Like the FTC couldn't block it, but these guys do.
I don't know how that works. I don't know. What else have we got?
Oh yeah, in other large companies being sad. Riot Games company known for its extreme ethics.
That's
Uh,
yeah. Uh-huh.
Now, you might have heard of a company called FTX. Mm-hmm. They've been a little bit in the news lately.
Yeah.
Being of the most recent and largest very public cryptocurrency crash, and that's a particularly egregious and horrible, egregious financial thing. Billions of dollars gone away.
Yeah,
because
probably
of
not any of your
terrible-
money though, so feel good about that.
because of terrible cryptocurrency stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
You may also have heard the term FTX because it was in the names of a lot of pro gaming teams.
Yes.
Oh, was this the
And-
thing that
and
happened
also-
when Twitter wouldn't let you change your names and they
That-
literally
that-
couldn't get that unstuck and they had to?
That was a problem.
Yeah.
Also, you might have heard it in the name of the FTX League of Legends Championship Series. Also, apparently, Sam Bankman-Fried, the CEO of FTX, who has been under a lot of, shall we say, scrutiny and criminal investigation, has also repeatedly many times said that he really likes playing League of Legends.
Good.
And in fact, there's stuff of him apparently just playing League of Legends
Yep.
on his laptop during meetings and stuff like that, which is hey, that's awesome. The CEO of one of the biggest companies in the world
Would rather play League of Legends than
play
do
League
his
of Legends.
job.
Then
Yeah,
and then
most of us pretend we're not playing video games when we have our meetings at Lure.
which is like a super great for your brand until that company is completely persona non grata or
Yeah.
whatever. So hilariously, League of Legends. So League of Legends or Riot is complaining. I'm not sure if this is a suit or what, because
Okay.
presumably they don't have any assets for them to sue about. But anyway, they're complaining that FTX's very public downfall has negatively affected Riot Games both reputationally and financially. So basically, they're like, you guys gave us a ton of money to sponsor various events, but now you are so toxic that you're making us look bad. And we're Riot Games, so
Yeah.
think about that for a
Yeah.
sec.
And it's funny because it's I know there's that sense of, oh well, sometimes you take a Raid Shadow Legends sponsorship because you got to make ends meet, right? Sometimes I gotta, we gotta do a little bit of thing we don't really want to do, but we know we gotta make rent. So there's that kind of thing. I'm like, but my God, Riot, you're so big and you have a lot of money and a popular game and whatever, and then these guys come along and it's like, we want to do this, and you're like, I guess that's a brand we want to ally ourselves with. So yeah. Great, ally yourselves with them.
I think it would be funnier if they wanted to disavow everything to do with them because and they publicly said because it doesn't meet our whatever.
Yeah.
Especially given the stuff about their own brand.
Yeah, but don't worry, we're gonna get a new sponsorship. We heard of this great company called MTGOX. We're gonna work with Mount Gox in the next.
Yeah.
Sorry, what? Oh, okay. Well,
I specifically remember stuff happening around the time when Twitter locked people's names.
Yeah.
Because they had to take that stuff out of their Twitter names and they couldn't.
Yeah.
Along the same time when a lot of people who were had just written that they were at a certain convention, because people will do that. They'll change their name to say they're at a convention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they couldn't change it to say that they weren't. I saw some streamers actually, because some streamers will write that they're live within their name as a thing. And then I saw some streamers being like, I'm not actually live now, but I can't take it off.
But there was definitely when
really
the FTX thing was going down, there was various teams that were getting heat because there was like, hey guys, I can't believe you're still supporting FTX. Have you seen the kinds of stuff they're doing? They're clearly a scam. Then be like, we know, we can't change our name.
Yeah.
There's a different problem going on.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Here's a link to our Mastodon account where we can do whatever we want. Don't follow this account anymore. Go be on a different platform.
All right.
Waving
well,
my little flag around a little bit at this point.
if you've recently made some poor financial decisions,
How many poor financial stories are we about to dig into?
It is
No,
the
no, no.
Christmas season.
it is the Christmas season, and don't worry.
No.
You can still probably buy a skin for your Overwatch 2 Bastion character.
But Paul, I have not many coins left. But skins are all very expensive.
Do you have one of coins?
Probably because I have to buy them in sets of 10.
Because if you
100.
have one coin, you can buy this gingerbread Bastion skin.
That means I'll have 9 coins left to buy,
Nothing.
well, maybe something else later.
That's so, it's great. It's one coin. It's super
Yeah.
cheap. Everyone, it's a fun thing to do.
I think it's cute.
The one thing that people are annoyed with, though, is that everything else is in, increments, so that 9 coins is actually not useful.
Yep. You'll be able to hold on those 9 until next holidays when they put Tracer in an elf outfit or something, and she'll cost a coin. So.
Do you think in the updated version of Hansel and Gretel that the witch doesn't have a gingerbread house, but instead has like a gingerbread motorhome?
In the updated version of Hansel
Gingerbread
and Gretel,
Gundam?
the witch will just have a smartphone because those kids, am I right? And they like smartphones.
They're
You're weird.
Yeah, whatever I was holding inside of me is now gone, and now
Are
it's
you
just
sure?
terrible humor.
I feel like you might be haunted. And not by like a good ghost. Not by like a fun ghost. It's like a very cranky old ghost.
She has a gingerbread phone, and then the kids come to her house, and they're always on the gingerbread phone, and so
I
she
asked a
shoves
cute
them in the oven.
and fun question, and you just destroyed it.
I like
So-
gingerbread motorhome though. That's cool.
You can't walk this back.
How do they
sir.
how do they find their way to the? Does she like?
They
Does she
get
park? Is it an RV park?
Clearly, they get lost in the Walmart parking lot.
Oh, I see. Yes, on their way to or from Walmart, they're trying to find their way back to their own car.
Wait to their own car.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, if this is supposed to be Hansel and Gretel, their parents take them to Walmart and then abandon them in the parking lot.
Oh, Paul, that's too real. That's too real. Or they drive home and forgot they had them at the Walmart.
I guess let's continue on with poor financial decisions.
Sure.
Like Google Stadia, for instance.
Yeah, that was a shit show.
I thought we had no more news about Google Stadia. They're gone.
They are gone.
And in the closing, a Christmas miracle occurred.
But if you are somebody who purchased games on Google Stadia, I'm not saying that was a bad idea to purchase games on Google Stadia. From what I understand, for the people it worked for, it worked quite well. But obviously, you kind of got the fuzzy end of the popsicle stick because none of your games are working anymore because Stadia is gone.
A well-known Canadianism.
You maybe shouldn't have had that popsicle if the end is fuzzy.
What is that? Have you not heard that term before?
Never heard that term before.
Really? Oh.
We can talk about that more in detail later.
Anyway, but if Ubisoft, who
Had many games on Stadia.
had the most games of any publisher, in fact,
Oh,
37,
I stand corrected.
all at once on Stadia. If you had any of those games, they've just said that, you know what, you can just have those. If you have if you have any of those any of the games that were available, you can transfer them, or in fact they will automatically show up in your Ubisoft account if assuming your Ubisoft Connect account was linked to your Stadia account,
Right.
which presumably it would have had to have been if
In
you,
order to.
Yeah, because most of
Yeah.
the time, my understanding is if you have an Ubisoft game on any other kind of launcher on PC or whatever, typically you have to have an Ubisoft account,
right?
right?
Yeah,
Like when we played It Takes Two,
Yeah, you always-
we both had to be logged in on Ubisoft, even though we got it off of Steam.
yeah.
Okay.
You have to make different. You have to make. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you have to make an Ubisoft account regardless. Anyway, so it and by the way, if you've got other games on Stadia, Google has said that they're going to refund them all.
Yeah.
So you should do that.
But this is cool because it's like, hey, you get this, you get the games that you would have purchased. We will make sure this comes. And I'm like, that was, in a way, that's kind of completely unnecessary, but wonderful that they did that. And for all the shit that we give Ubisoft about just some corporate culture stuff, you really need to clean up. You have done some damage to some people.
Which is
But this-
entirely true.
Yeah. But you have also doing a nice thing here that was completely unnecessary, but hey, that's good for you
Well,
for
I
doing
mean,
that.
you want to make sure you keep the customers you still manage to have.
Yeah, they bought your games.
It's-
They
There's,
clearly want to
there's
play
a
your
lot
games.
of people who won't play Ubisoft games because of the corporate culture stuff.
Absolutely.
Which, if that's where you want to draw your line in the sand, good on you. But, you know,
It's nice that, like, the one good thing about Stadia's shutdown is that it's one of these circumstances where, like, it's unusual for a service or a company to go completely
Tits up.
kaput,
Yeah, sorry.
to go completely kaput while the actual company itself is still not only existing but
Right.
very much so. You know, most companies that go out of business, or most times a service dies, the company that was running that service aren't in a position to give refunds for everybody because
Absolutely.
they have no money
But
because their
Google
service died.
Is an innovator.
But Google
Well.
is all about canceling services.
Google is very, very good at starting and stopping.
Now, we have
Yeah.
this is all well and good, but we have a problem. Paul, if I was on Google Stadia, that is probably because I don't have a decent way to run any of these games. So I was playing them streaming because I had an older PC or I'd have older consoles or whatever else, and now I can't play my Google Stadia games. And even though Ubisoft has given me these games to play, where should I play them if I don't have the proper equipment to play them on?
Well, you could
Is Ubisoft starting their own console?
no.
Okay, cool.
But they do have a system called Ubisoft Plus Multi-Access, which basically I think gives you the Ubisoft games in the various
Other streaming.
like it's a cross-platform thing.
Oh,
Right.
okay. All right.
And so if you
Sign up for like NVIDIA GeForce Now or something.
yeah, you'll get information about and possibly and a voucher for a month of free service of that
Of
system.
GeForce Now. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, or of Ubisoft Plus. I'm not sure which. I don't know.
Yeah.
You
'Cause
get a
they-
month free of something, so
They
that's
did,
good.
They did say that all their stuff runs on Amazon's Luna platform and on GeForce Now, and so yeah, and the fact that they're like, if you sign up for all this stuff, you'll get a free month of GeForce Now, and it's like that. I feel like we're going to be slowly shaking all of these services into a point where there's maybe only
Right.
the two, like there'll be two on top, maybe even just eventually one on top. I don't know.
Maybe. It's hard to say. I'm still waiting for the time when we can stop talking about Google Stadia because they're dead.
Yeah.
And I'm past my mourning period,
They're-
and I just don't.
It's the-
I don't understand how they keep making headlines.
I hate to be
It's
shitty
the,
about
it's,
this though.
It's the death throes.
Yes.
But they're being so dramatic about it.
It's don't
just
worry. It's
die
just,
and get
it's
off
just-
stage
it's just,
already.
It's just gas escaping from the core.
Okay.
It's totally normal.
I need to ask though, so how many years will it be before we see Google try to bring this back under a different name? Because I put it at about 3 years before we
Yeah,
see them
3
try
to 5
something
years.
again. Yeah.
It'll be
Yeah,
called
it
like
needs to be a couple of years,
Google Games
definitely.
Plus.
Yeah.
Um,
Google Centros or something, some sort
And
of like, yeah.
and it will be very similar,
Mm-hmm.
but not quite the same.
Yes.
And not work. It'll like work slightly differently because it is actually like it will it will share nothing in the underlying infrastructure, and they will have like learned nothing from the Stadia thing, and we'll just be starting at ground zero again.
When they
that's
do
how
this,
they work.
Yeah.
Supposing they do this, and you're correct, when they do this, do you think they just forgo the whole dev thing?
And be like, we're not going to make our own
no,
studios.
No internal dev thing.
Yeah, it's just we're just going to make a service that allows you to do this kind of thing.
Because they
that's
didn't.
all we're going to put
I don't think.
together.
I'm not even sure they got a game out of their internal devs
No, they did not.
before they got rid of them. So I just don't know if they would bother with that part again.
And like, to be honest, in some, like you're saying, the sort of consolidation, like, to be honest, like in some ways it would almost be better for like the industry, and I could see even being more successful.
Yeah.
For a company to sort of commit to being a neutral, a neutral conduit.
Yes.
Like being like, we won't develop any games, therefore we will have no impetus to promote certain games higher than the others.
Kind of like Nvidia's doing. Yeah.
We are just a conduit.
Yes.
We and that, so Nintendo and Microsoft and Sony and whatever, you guys can all use our service.
Yeah.
We won't prioritize anybody. We'll just, and that way, we can all have the same infrastructure.
I don't know.
And go.
I
I mean, it won't work, but
yeah, I have a hard time believing. Like, okay, I believe somebody would show up one day, Google Stadia or not, and be like, "Hey, we could all be on the same thing. Wouldn't that be great?" But when you look at it, it's like, unless Xbox Game Pass is really failing for some reason, I don't really see how they're going to do that. And Nintendo doesn't want to play with others that way.
No, they don't, and I don't
foresee them wanting to change that idea.
They're just starting the cloud gaming thing right now,
for
anyway.
like 60 years or something. Like,
I was gonna say the funny thing, that is it is sort of like what Steam is doing.
Yeah.
That being said, Valve is supposed to be making video games.
Yes.
They just don't anymore.
I don't know. They made that VR game, didn't they?
The Half-Life Alyx?
Yeah.
Yeah. Every once in a while they come up with a game.
To show off how well the Steam Deck works.
Yeah.
Oh, they also made like a Portal Steam Deck thing.
Yeah.
It was actually kind of fun.
Yeah.
They're not ever gonna make whatever the next Half-Life is like they're supposed to, or
anything
thing.
else.
Didn't they make a card game with David Garfield? I don't know whatever Magic's
Richard
name is.
Garfield?
Richard Garfield, sure.
Was that them? Artifact?
Artifact, thank you. It was like
was that
Anthem?
was that not Valve?
It might have been, yeah.
Apex Legends?
So I wouldn't say they're not making games. They're just not doing the ones people want.
I think what'll happen if Google, I'm saying Google here, ride with me. If Google decides to do a new thing, it'll actually be Alphabet that decides to do a new thing, and they will run it as a spin-off company. I don't think it'll be all made with Google people, but they will try to operate as a spin-off service and just either call it Stadia or call it something completely separate from Google and be like, we don't have to market it as a Google thing. We can market it as a brand new thing. That way we're not carrying that baggage with us. We won't even call it Stadia. We'll call it something else. But I can kind of see them Alphabet being like, we'll put money into this because we think that this having a toe in the game in gaming, which is a huge industry, it's probably a very good thing for them to have, and to have to make connections and contracts and whatnot. There's value in doing that. I'm sure that they will. Google will not abandon gaming entirely because they probably see too much potential money for them to make in some way, shape, or form.
But we probably won't see. Well, I mean, we have to go back to a convention, but we probably won't see like the big stand for whatever they're doing.
No.
The thing I remember about Stadia was it not being really out yet for the longest time, but kind of being out for some people while they were working stuff out, and the
marketing the hell out of it,
the giant stands and stuff for it, and all the commercials I'd see.
I'm just mostly looking forward to seeing all the hardware show up on eBay or at some sort of auction sale or whatever, just being pushed out for bargain basement prices, and people being like, I can't use this thing for anything, but yeah, I'll buy a Stadia controller. Haha, isn't that fun? And then about 3 years from now, some enterprising hackers will figure out a way to make this stuff work with everything else, and the next thing you know, these controllers are worth like $300 or some crazy thing, because it's like, get yourself a Stadia controller, then mod it and do this thing, and now you play all the games for free in the world, and free blowjob machine.
Pretty sure Stadia controllers just work as PC controllers already.
Do they just do it normally?
Yeah.
Great, okay.
They were fine for that.
They were a good controller.
People were all right with them.
I'm guessing, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty good controller.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was a decent controller. But you know what they should do? Buy Atari.
If Alphabet bought Atari, made it into a game streaming service.
Because wasn't Atari like one of the things that they stuck Stadia by in their like little like video game history?
I think
yes.
so. Yeah.
Areas, so they should
put
buy
ET in the Power Glove up.
Yeah, so they should buy those things.
Yeah, I had a copy of ET, by the way. Like back in that's how old I am. Is we had a copy of ET for our Coleco Gemini, and that game sucked.
Famously
sucked. But it's like I played it, I had it. Like if you're like, wow, I've never seen or played or doing it, there's like, you've met a person at least who can tell you that it sucked and it's not worth getting you one. So.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have known.
People exist.
There were definitely people running around the streets going, "Oh no, should I get the ET game?
Yeah.
How will I ever know?" That was definitely happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Is ET a forgotten gem?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I definitely saw one guy yelling about that on the street on the way into work today.
Yeah.
ET, the hidden gem.
It's like we were talking earlier. I showed them the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier, the USS Flagg, that was like $150 or $200 back in the 80s when it first came out. And it was like the thing that a bunch of G.I. Joe kids wanted for Christmas, which was not me. But it's like this thing is like 4 feet long, or 5 feet long. It's like it's way too big for it to be a kid's toy. But it was the thing that you wanted if you're into that. And now they're like $4,000 on eBay. And was just kind of like all those kind of things from back in the day where you're like, oh, I never knew a kid who had one of those things. I never knew a kid who had, but we all saw it in the store, but we don't know anybody who actually had one. Or you did know a friend of a friend who had one, or that kind of thing.
No.
And so it's like just closing down the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon here to be like, you have now met a person who had ET when they were a kid. Most people in Lure would not have had that when they were kids. So,
I get it.
Yeah.
You're old.
I'm old.
Stop bringing up toys that didn't exist for
I
me.
am wise with experience, and it will do you good to listen to me.
I would disagree with that.
Well, all right. On that note, let's...
Whatever note that was.
That's all we got today.
I just want to matter to children.
No.
That's all the video game news.
You have to take a test for that.
As mentioned on the episode of ChillPoint, we're going to be taking a couple weeks off of ChillPoint, and we'll be coming back for more ChillPoint in the new year. We haven't actually discussed whether
are we taking off ChillPoint? I meant to ask, but I completely forgot.
We probably should have discussed that before we went online.
I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah,
we'll be around, so there's a good chance we'll still do ChillPoint.
Yeah,
ChillPoint, assuming that something happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's just no news because
we could
all the online places that news gets disseminated have also gone.
Yeah, we could just talk about games we played over the year or something.
They're just doing roundup guides now mostly, right? Best of this and the thing I played.
We could do our best of the year.
Yeah.
Our fake awards.
Yeah.
We'll figure out something.
We'll figure it out.
Absolutely.
So whether we see you next week or not, thank you very much for watching this. Of course, it's available on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/LRRVG for video games. And if you haven't watched the episode of ChillPoint that this is talking about, it is probably right near this episode of ChillPoint, somewhere on the same channel.
Check out our Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. And don't forget that store.loadingreadyrun.com exists, although no cups are available, but there are other things that you might like.
You can log in and buy things. So we're already way ahead of Nintendo. Thanks everybody for watching, and we will talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.